And now from TreasureIslandOldies.com, here's the rock and roll news for the week of March 17th. This week in 1968, the Bee Gees made their U.S. television debut on The Ed Sullivan Show. Carl Perkins made his first television appearance in 1956. It was on the Ozark Jamboree. The movie American Hot Wax, about influential disc jockey Alan Freed, had its premiere this week in 1978. Speaking of films, the movie Rio Bravo that starred Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, Walter Brennan, and John Wayne opened this week in 1960. Jerry Lee Lewis became the very first artist to sing 3 songs on an episode of American Bandstand in 1958, and he actually sang them and didn't lip-sync the songs. Elvis Presley bought Graceland Mansion this week in 1957 for $102,500, and $37,000 of which was mortgaged. Gary Leeds from the Walker Brothers was abducted by British students during a raising funds for charity event this week in 1966. In 1969, John Lennon married Yoko Ono, and they began their Beddin' for Peace in Amsterdam. A parade was held in London before Martha Reeves headlined the very first Motown tour of England in 1965, and that tour included Stevie Wonder, the Supremes, and the Temptations. In 1991, Michael Jackson signed a $60 million contract with Sony Records, at the time the largest ever contract. Bobby Rydell made his teenage television debut when he was interviewed by Dick Clark on American Bandstand in 1959. And 30 years later, in 1989 this week, Dick Clark retired as the host of American Bandstand. The Beatles made their first appearance at Liverpool's Cavern Club this week in 1961. Legendary DJ Alan Freed hosted his first Moondog Coronation Ball this week in 1952 in Cleveland, Ohio. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, aired the Beatles parody, The Ruttles, All You Need Is Cash, this week in 1978. If you haven't ever seen it, you should get a copy. It is quite hysterical. Elvis's movie Easy Come, Easy Go premiered this week in 1967. Bob Dylan's first electric album, Bring It All Back Home, released this week in 1965. John Lennon's book In His Own Right was published in 1964. The classic movie Blackboard Jungle, which launched the featured song Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley, was released this week in 1955. Bobby Darin's album That's All was released in 1959 this week, and that included Mac the Knife and Beyond the Sea. Future Rolling Stones Mick Jagger and Keith Richards made their professional stage debut with the group called Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys at a club in Ealing, England this week in 1962. Freddie and the Dreamers' Do the Freddie was released in 1965. In 1966, the photograph of the Butcher cover for the American version of Yesterday and Today by the Beatles, that photo was taken this week. The movie version of Tommy premiered in London in 1975. Kenner, Louisiana named a street Lloyd Price Avenue in honor of their native son this week in 1994. Barbra Streisand opened on Broadway in Funny Girl this week in 1964. In the studio, the Coasters recorded Yakety Yak in 1958. Bobby V recorded Come Back When You Grow Up in 1967. Sarah Vaughan cut Whatever Lola Wants in 55. The Everly Brothers recorded Kathy's Clown this week in 1960. In 1961, Ricky Nelson recorded Hello, Mary Lou, and his father Ozzy played the tenor guitar on the recording session while celebrating his 55th birthday. Elvis's first post-Army recording session took place this week in 1960, and it yielded Stuck on You, for which there were already 1.5 million advance orders. George Hamilton IV recorded Abilene in 63. D. Clark cut Raindrops in 61. Elvis in the studio again in this week in 1961, recording Can't Help Falling in Love. Ray Peterson recorded The Wonder of You in 59. Johnny Cash recorded Ring of Fire in 63. The Everly Brothers cut So Sad to Watch Good Love Go By in 1960. Also in 60, Roy Orbison cut Only the Lonely. Ray Charles recorded Georgia on My Mind in 58. Ricky Nelson recorded in 1957 his very first songs in the studio, I'm Walkin' and A Teenager's Romance. Chuck Berry recorded No Place to Go, No Particular Place to Go in 64, and D. Clark recorded Hey Little Girl in 1958. Let's see, birthdays for you. Boy, we got a lot. John Sebastian, lead singer from the 11th Spoonful, is 68. Nat King Cole, born 1919. Adam Wade is 78. Patty Boyd is 68. Zola Taylor from the Platters, born this week in 1938. Wilson Pickett was born in 1941. Clarence Fogman Henry is 76. Robin Luke, 71. Ruth Pointer from the Pointer Sisters is 67. Jerry Reed, born in 1937. Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer is 63. Joe Rivers from Johnny and Joe is 76. Solomon Burke, born in 1940. Billy Joe Hunter, who owned the record label that recorded Percolator, was born this week in 1919. Johann Sebastian Bach, who literally wrote A Whiter Shade of Pale, later recorded by Procol Harum, A Lover's Concerto, later by the Toys, and Apollo 100's Joy, he was born this week in 1685. Jeremy Clyde from Chad and Jeremy is 69. George Benson turned 70. Shaka Khan, 60. Billy Stewart, born in 1937. Nick Lowe is 64. Dave Appel from the Applejacks is our senior citizen, coming in this week at 91. Nervous Norvis, born in 1912. Sir Elton John is 66. Aretha Franklin, 71. Johnny Burnett turns 34. Bonnie Guitar is 89. Anita Bryant is 73. Hoyt Axton, born in 1938. Diana Ross is 69. Johnny Crawford, 67. Alan Arkin, who became an actor and an Academy Award-winning actor, but originally a member of the Tarriers. He's 79. Rufus Thomas, born in 1917. Fred Parris from the Five Satins is 77. Vicki Lauren, 64. Teddy Pendergrass from Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, born in 1950. Steven Tyler from Aerosmith is 65. And the late Rod Lauren is turning 40. No, is born in 1940. And from TreasureIslandOldies.com, that's your rock and roll news for this week. Stay tuned to all the late breaking news by coming to the Treasure Island Oldies blog, available at TreasureIslandOldies.com, and click blog. I'm Michael Godin.
Treasure Island Oldies.